Hey guys, just Gilbert here again, and in this tutorial what we're going to do is just have a look at automating Grunt tasks. So in previous tutorials we've looked at installing Grunt and installing packages and running tasks, and what we're going to do in this quick tutorial is just look at how to automate tasks. So running tasks is great, we've already seen how much time that can save and how powerful that is, just being able to compile things, minify things, run unit tests, optimize images, could be anything. But sometimes you want to automate the process even further so that you don't even have to run grunt every time something changes. So let's say, for instance, that we have a SAS file, and every time we make a change to that SAS file, we need to compile it to CSS so that we can see the changes in our website. And so there is thankfully a way to do that. There's a package called Grunt Watch which we'll install, and that'll help us to do that. So just as a recap, just going to show you what we've got so far. So this is our Grunt file at the moment. I've added this uglify config and package to the Grunt file, and so we have this. We now have a style.scss file for our SAS. We now also just have a short example.js file, and our Grunt, what we've told Grunt to do is compile our SAS based on these settings, and also uglify our JavaScript, which will basically just take the example.js file, minify it, and store it in a different location. Now this structure here is slightly different. You can see from the one above it's fairly straightforward. That's a destination and a source. One powerful aspect that Grunt has is that it uses different patterns and something called node globbing, which is just a way to read files from a folder without having to specify every single individual file. And so although this looks a wee bit daunting, this files expression here, it's actually relatively simple. And what it basically means is CWD is current working directory, so it says read all of the files in this directory, which is our JS source directory, and if the file matches this pattern, so this means that any subfolders can be multiple levels of subfolders, and any file that ends with .js, so any JavaScript file, will be matched in this source folder. And what we want to do is compile it into this destination folder, which at the moment doesn't exist. That's okay, Grunt will create that for us, and we want to give it a different extension. So instead of just being called example.js, we want to call it example.min.js since it's been minified and uglified. So just to show you that in action, let's go ahead and run Grunt, and you'll see that it compiles our SAS as it did last time, and it uglifies our JavaScript. So this was our JavaScript example.js file. If we hit we can now see that it's created this destination folder like we asked it to. So this is where we specified that we wanted our new compiled files to go, and this is our example.min.js file, and as you can see it's been minified and renamed, and that's the file that we would use if we were including it in a production site or wherever you need to use your built assets. So that's just a quick example of uglify and just using this different files expression. So let's say that we want to, every time that we change our SAS file or our JavaScript file, we want Grunt to automatically run our task to compile these different files, so SAS for SAS and uglify for JavaScript. So let's go ahead and install the watch package. So the Grunt watch package does a very simple thing in some ways, and in that it basically just it watches folders that you specify, it watches files that you specify, and if they change it'll run the tasks that we tell it to. So let's go ahead and install the package. Remember to use our save dev flag to install it to our package.json file. Let's go ahead and load the task in our Grunt file, and let's again just go down and have a look at the examples that they give on the documentation, because they're pretty good and they kind of tell us what we want to do. So let's copy one of these into our Grunt file, and it goes in the watch specification goes in our init config function, just like the other config options sets do. And so we've got a watch as our task, and we're going to tell it to watch scripts. That's our target. And what we want to do is tell it to watch all of the scripts in our JS stroke source folder. And again, with this globbing, what this means, this expression at the end means that in any subfolders of multiple levels, it doesn't matter, and any files ending in JS, that's the files we want to watch to see if they change. And if they do change, we want to run uglify as our task, and we can just leave this options and spawn setting. They're kind of default settings for watch. So that's watch setup. And the other thing we want to do, of course, is compile our Sass. So we'll just copy this target, we'll add a new target called Sass, and we'll just follow the same process. So let's say that we want to monitor all the files in our Sass folder and any subfolders that end in .scss, and if they change, we want to run the Sass task, and that again, that should watch our folders. So now that we have this up and running, what we can actually do, there's two ways to run watch. One way is to simply go to Grunt, and instead of just typing Grunt, which will just compile or run our tasks and compile our code like it did last time, what we could do is we can run Grunt watch. And what Grunt watch will do is, instead of just running all through the tasks once, it doesn't run through the tasks, it just watches. And so let's test this. So if we go to our style.css file, and let's change this color again to just a different color and hit save, you can see over here that Grunt has caught that. It sees that the file's changed, it runs the Sass task like we told it to, and it's completed running that task in 0.3 seconds. And if we just go to our style.css, we should see that that change has indeed compiled. And so just to demonstrate that again, let's change our JavaScript file. So we've told, go back to our Grunt file, so we've told watch to look for changes to our JavaScript files, and if there is any changes, run the uglify task, which we've defined up here. And so let's say we want to change our JavaScript, and we're going to hit save. And again, because Grunt is currently watching these files, you'll see that it sees the files changed, it runs the uglify task, and it completes. And if we just check our example.min file, we see that the changes are indeed reflected in the minified file. So this is extremely powerful. Watch allows you to basically run Grunt watch and just leave Grunt. You can leave it running in the background, and anytime there's any changes to any of your files, you can run it, and Grunt will automatically compile or run any task that you specify based on any files that you're looking for. So that's incredibly powerful, and I'm sure you can see that this is really going to save a lot of time in your workflow. Just one other thing to note about running Grunt watch is that if we what we can actually do is you can actually add watch as a task to the end of your Grunt task runner. So before, when we ran Grunt, it just ran through the tasks individually, but then stopped at the end. It just finished and exited. But if we run Grunt now, that we've added watch to the end of our task list, what should happen is that it will run through the list, compiling and running the tasks that we specify, but it will also then run watch afterwards. And so that way you can run Grunt once, it'll compile everything, and then it just leave it to watch, and it'll just continue watching for any file changes as you work in your project. So that's Grunt automation, and I hope you are able to see how powerful and how useful this can be in your workflow.